This is AI for disruption, using AI for competitive differentiation. And we're going to talk to three thought leaders within industries that maybe you wouldn't necessarily associate with being early adopters for this sort of technology. So that is Mike Hansen, who's the Director of Contact Center Operations at Carter's. We have Dan Savino, the SVP of Artificial Intelligence and Innovation at SelectQuote, and Bryan Delmont, who leads operations at Bonfe, all being moderated by our own Kylie Whitehead.
Hi everyone, I'm Kylie Whitehead. I'm really excited to bring you the final panel of today, where we'll be discussing AI for disruption and how to use AI for competitive differentiation. I'm joined today by three exceptional disruptors from three very different companies. So first up, we have Bryan Delmont. Bryan has over 17 years experience in the home service industry at Bonfe, where he served as an operations manager and a member of the leadership team. Bryan's led several disruptive product launches and is currently exploring the potential of AI to optimize and advance the company's operations, sales, finance, and marketing departments. Hi, Bryan.
Hello.
Next, we have Dan Savino. With over 10 years of progressive roles at SelectQuote Insurance Services, Dan is a seasoned IT leader who oversees the technical development for the implementation of new business phone systems and the design of software aimed at enhancing operations. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
And finally, we have Mike Hansen, Director of Contact Center Operations at Carter's Oshkosh B'gosh. Mike is an accomplished, results-driven executive with proven success overseeing safe, innovative, and highly productive work environments. Hi, Mike.
How are you?
So we're quite a mixed panel today. We've got CX, we've got operations, we've got IT leaders, and we're in home services, insurance, and retail. So the first thing I'd love to understand from each of you is, how do you think about competitive differentiation in your role? So Dan, why don't you start us off?
Well, in my role, I view competitive differentiation as a strategic necessity. Everyone around, in my company has heard something about AI. And even though they might have a healthy fear of it, they want it, and they want it now. They don't know what they want it to do, but they want it. And so for my role, the expectation is to figure out a way to bring AI into our company in a responsible and profitable way. That means searching out opportunity for the utilization of AI. Our company's unique customer offering really is enhanced and has always been enhanced by how we utilize and operationalize that technology. So in the start of our AI journey, it was incumbent on me to learn as much as I could about this. And identifying valued partners was critical for me. And that's where Poly came in onto my radar. And so, frankly, has made my role much easier.
Excellent. Thank you, Dan. And Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I think the challenge has always been to make sure that we're offering our customer the absolute best customer experience, right? And where we have amazing agents that work with us, we have this huge hockey stick this time of year for holiday where we were hiring up to 200 people. And so the customer experience, the answers they were getting were less than consistent at times. And so implementing PolyAI, we're able to make sure that the customers that use our self-service offerings in the IVA get the same experience every single time. It's very consistent, very fast. It allowed us to remain true to one of our values, which is inspire innovation. And so we're using it to continue to increase that step to world-class customer service.
Yeah, fantastic. And last but not least, Bryan.
I've really found that in our industry, a lot of my competition is leaning towards technology to be the one and only differentiator in their business. And the more that I look into it, I've realized that Technology is extremely important. However, you need to make sure that you've got the right mix of technology and human interaction. So there's a quote that I really appreciate. It says that processes can help automate the predictable and humanize the exceptional. So here at Bonfe, I've been having a lot of conversations with folks around here about the use of AI and how it's really important for us to always be exploring the options that we can use AI for. But if we can make sure to match up the use of AI with the appropriate benefit that we're looking for. So in our company, AI has become very beneficial in helping us with automating routine tasks. And by doing that, we are then opening up time for our human employees to actually improve their customer experience with their customers on the phone, in the home, and really being present so that they can improve that experience every day.
Yeah, I think, Mike, you mentioned seasonality, and Bryan, I'm wondering if that's something you also experience at Bonfe.
Absolutely. Yep, it's brutal. Here in Minnesota, we can be 100 degrees with high humidity, and then in the winter we're 40 below wind chills. So PolyAI has helped us a great deal in that, and you know we got on board last in October, and we launched our virtual assistant, Alice. We called her. We couldn't decide on a name, so we had GPT name her for us, and we all decided on Alice, and we agreed with that, and that was good. But Alice has enabled us to really handle the spikes that we see in the hot, cold weather by taking over the simple routine tasks. So one of the best benefits we've seen from Alice so far is that she is taking calls immediately, so customers have no wait time. She's answering FAQs, she's doing a call triage, so she's able to transfer calls immediately to the right department. And then we're also training her right now to basically book tune-ups for our customers, so heating and cooling tune-ups. And she's learning that. She's integrated with our CRM right now. And by the end of this week, we should be at 100% with her.
Yeah, nice. Dan, what about you? What about, does seasonality have an impact for call volume for you guys?
It's a huge issue for us. More importantly, the identifying of good employees to staff a call center in a seasonal kind of environment has been extremely challenging. Anyone that's had any recruiting efforts at all over the last couple of years could probably empathize with that. And so being able to employ AI in our call centers has been a game changer for us. Case in point, we fielded the use of AI in a call center environment very recently, this week, just with calls that were overflow calls we couldn't handle. We weren't even answering the calls. We employed AI and have realized hundreds of sales a day that we just weren't answering before. And so being able to bring AI to address staffing and scaling needs has been very advantageous for us.
Yeah, and I've heard that a lot, and I think a few people have said it today. Now is a really difficult time for hiring, and it's never been particularly easy, from what I understand, to hire, and especially to retain call center workers. And I think with some of these seasonal impacts, you can predict them, right? Maybe it's the holiday season, or it's back to school, or Bryan, as you were saying, maybe it's the start of summer and you're expecting people are booking services. But I think there are also times when it's very unexpected, right? Like the weather. I think, Bryan, this is going to be particularly relevant for you. And if you don't have something like AI in place to take these peaks in call volumes that are unexpected, what else would you have to do?
Well, in the past, we've asked our customer service reps to work overtime, and
Yeah.
they're a phenomenal bunch, and they step up every single time we ask. But sometimes, if you're in a hot or a cold spell that lasts 2 to 3 weeks, people can only work 60 hours a week for so long, and they start to wear out. They start to give out incorrect information, inconsistent information, and so that's really about all that we can do during those really busy times. And it's really been a bummer for us because we can see that customers are calling, they're waiting on hold, they're hanging up, and they're calling any one of 50 competitors here in town. So our marketing department is working extremely hard to get the phone ring, but we're not able to capitalize on that. But we are now.
Yeah, yeah. Mike, do you see similar things? Perhaps if the weather changes suddenly, do you see a spike in calls or?
Yeah, because our selections change with the seasons, and so we do see that. What I see more often than that is what they were both talking about again is the hiring, right? It's we were hiring 6 people to keep one, and now after putting Maria in, which is what we've named our virtual assistant, um, Maria is built via SIP trunk to handle 400 concurrent calls at one time. She can handle price adjustments. She can handle order cancellations, all of these things. And I've reduced hiring this year by over 100 people, just by doing that. So it has truly helped us to provide consistency for our customer in a time where it's kind of inconsistent to be able to hire on the back end. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think we've touched on this a little bit here, but if I can take you all back to before we met, before you guys met PolyAI, what was the sort of state of things, or the things that got you thinking, I need to look to AI for a solution, that this isn't that, there isn't really any other way to do this. And maybe Dan, you could start us off there.
Sure. So really pre our involvement with Poly, I would say, if we wanted to field like virtual agents or things like that, it would be always the press one for yes, two for no kind of experience. And when we're talking about differentiating ourselves from our competitors, having a first class voice assistant is like critical for us. And so, yeah, we were in that world of like, the number trees, the IVR kind of thing. And yeah, we all have had that experience. And we press the one lots of times and it doesn't understand us, things like that. So having that first in class option is important.
Yeah. Bryan, how about you?
Well, before we got in touch with Poly, we were using AI for a number of solutions here. And I was spearheading a lot of those, and I was really working hard to make sure that AI and GPT in particular were working very hard to solve our problems. But what I realized before hooking up with Poly AI that I was trying to use AI in a lot of situations and scenarios where it didn't fit. There are issues where technology simply can't help you. But when we met with Poly AI, that was really a no-brainer for us because we thought this is the technology that we've been looking for 10 to 15 years. And it just seemed like such an obvious fit for us. And ever since we signed with you folks, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been going great.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. And Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I think that in 2020, right before everyone went home with COVID, we saw the value of AI in implementing a chatbot. And so that was a game changer for my call center. So what I started looking at was how do when I do hire people, because our culture is not to get rid of people, but when I do hire people, how do I shorten that 7-week learning curve that they've got so that I don't have to hire people in July for November, right? And so we started looking at that, and Poly AI came up. I read several really strong articles about it, met with the team. They fit right into our culture. Um, and what it's allowed us to do is increase all of our performance metrics because it's, again, consistent.
Yeah.
And so now we're hiring fewer third party agents. which don't give as good of customer experience, although they were very good. Don't get me wrong. But then Maria doesn't take 7 weeks to train, and so we get her out there. Our average handle time in the IVA is about 63 seconds, which is about 5 minutes less than what a live agent does. We still need our live agents. They do an amazing job with the more difficult calls and the customer engagement. But to be quite honest with you, I would venture to say that half of the customers that call don't even know they're speaking to a virtual agent until we provide them with a survey at the back end.
Yeah. Dan touched on something interesting earlier, this idea of, you hear this robotic voice answer the phone and you're like, press one, or shout agent. And Nicola played that video at the beginning of the day. I don't know if you guys were around and saw that, but yeah, people get pretty angry sometimes when they speak to a bot because they've had bad experiences. And Mike, I was wondering if this is something that you were concerned about before you implemented Maria.
Yeah, because I was that guy, to be quite honest with you. And the struggle that I had the most was everybody whose IVA I hated, I couldn't get out of either, right? And so when we were doing the architecture and the building of it, one of the hard requirements I asked for the team was I don't want a customer to feel locked in, right? If they ask them why. If you tell them why, or if they say it again, let them out. What we find though is one of our biggest calls is where's my order, right? We call it Wismo. And so the customer will call, and if they do recognize it, they'll say, I want to speak to an agent. Maria says, absolutely. Tell me why you're calling. And they'll say, track an order. Well, I found your order. Here it is. Would you like me to text the information? And it still deflects the call from the agent. So, most of them, it works out well. But yeah, one of the main reasons we chose PolyAI was because the voice, the feel, and the culture that we saw.
Yeah, I think that flexibility is key, right? The worst thing is when you get stuck in an IVR and you have to hang up and call back again, and then you have to listen to that 2-minute security, safety, we're going to record the call message, just so that you can have another go at the IVR. It's like the world's worst. Choose your own adventure. Dan, you're an IT guy, so did you have similar concerns, or were you a bit more confident?
Oh no, I had the exact same concerns because I absolutely hate those things. They're horrible. I will say, when we got involved with Poly, something that put my mind at ease so much was when they had. I think you guys gave us some auditions for the voice of our company, and I got 3 recordings of these virtual agents auditioning for the job of the IVA that we were building or having built. I sent those recordings to my COO and said, hey, can you listen to these? Tell me what you think. Because I listened to them and the quality was of such high fidelity that it blew away anything else I had heard from any of our competitors. And the feedback that I got was just, I'm blown away, Dan. Great job. And of course, I gave the credit to Poly, but it certainly made my job so much easier knowing that I had a trusted and competent partner in Poly to help us build this technology.
You should absolutely take that credit. It always makes me really happy to hear when our clients get a little get a cheer from their colleagues for some of our projects. We hear that quite a bit, and it's really it's heartwarming. It makes it.
Well, if you're in IT, you know that we need all the help that we can. And so,
yeah, I bet.
So thank you.
I bet. And finally, Bryan, was this experience a concern for you guys before coming into this project?
It really was. For some people, is more than others. But the owner of our company, for example, whenever he calls anyone for service, he needs to speak to a human being. He loves talking to people. He doesn't like automated systems at all. But like Dan, we had some samples that we could share with others, and I emailed those out to the leadership team, and I got responses I can't repeat here, because they were so blown away by how incredible that these things sounded. They said, "This is really scary, but let's give it a go and see what happens." And with our industry too, people are um, they're very personal and private about their homes, right? It's a very close thing to their hearts, and so when they call someone for service, they need someone that they can trust. They need to have a relationship with. They always like to call the company down the street. And our fear was that if we had an automated system answering the phone, that they would not feel that relationship and that they would hang up immediately. But we found in the last month that most of our customers don't know that Alice is an automated system, and a lot of times we're hearing from the CSRs that if the customer is calling with an issue that Alice can't handle, she'll transfer them, and then they'll ask the CSR. The very first question is, "Are you a human being?" Because they thought Alice was, right. So it was a concern, but that was really squashed within probably the first couple of weeks of us really working on the system.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, and at PolyAI, it has been, it's been a decision to create the best voices that sound natural, right? That feel like talking to a real person. And I think in the future, and I'm talking years down the line, when companies like, I hope PolyAI have done a good job. In the future, maybe we'll hear that robotic voice and we won't think, oh, great, this is never going to work, right? Maybe we can go back to the robotic voice in the future. But right now, it's not about tricking people into thinking that they're talking to a person. It's about enabling them to forget that they're talking to a robot so that they can actually get the thing done that they wanted to call for, right? So thinking about the future of customer service, Mike, let's start with you this time. How are you thinking of offering a more competitive customer experience in the future at Carter's?
Yeah, I think that the goal is to build the APIs and train Maria to do as much stuff as we can. I would love um, to be able to do online sales through through the IVA with Maria's help, and so we're trying to think what that looks like, right? Right now in our chat bot, if you say my daughter likes pink dresses, we throw pink dresses up on the screen. Where with the IVA, I'm thinking my daughter likes pink dresses. We can send you a link to pages and pages of pink dresses in the size that you're looking for and things like that. So I think that the opportunities are endless. The innovation of our implementation team, I mean, they've helped us think of new ideas for it as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Bryan, same question to you.
Yeah, for us, we are planning phase two with PolyAI. Looks like probably in Q1. And it's not going to be a great, big, exciting phase for us, but it's going to be extremely helpful. So we need to make sure our customers are kept up to date throughout the day with when our service techs are going to be getting to their homes. And we have an entire staff of people making phone calls to do that. So our plan is to get Alice set up so that she can start making those calls for us. And then if customers do need to reschedule or change an appointment, that she'll be able to integrate with our CRM and make those changes eventually. But again, we're going to be switching that personal touch to the automated touch in that case. But we will be leaving our CSRs there available to really help the customers that are making the inbound calls. A lot of those calls need our CSR's empathy, right, to deal with things like, I have no heat, I have no hot water, my power is out, I have no air conditioning. So that is going to be the next step that we're looking at with Poly, and we're extremely excited about it because it helps our CSRs focus on the things that they really want to do. They really want to help the customer and be present with the customer. And when they're just dialing, making a ton of outbound calls, leaving a number of messages all the time, that's not as fun, it's not as exciting, and they don't enjoy that as much. So if we can have Alice making those calls for us, my CSRs are going to really enjoy their jobs that much more.
Yeah, well, that does sound exciting. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by saying it's not a big exciting phase. I think it will be really cool. And Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I think the same exact thing. I mean, we're identifying over the next few months, we'll be identifying the most ROI impactful areas to utilize this technology in, and balancing that with what would make our employees' job easier. And so, like the example I threw out earlier, we're now answering calls that we just didn't before, and we're making sales off of that. That's fantastic. Maybe we'll implement AI in reading disclaimers or just stuff that our reps don't need to do. We can use AI for. So responsibly identifying those opportunities for us is going to be critical over the next few quarters.
Yeah, amazing. I think you've all touched on a couple of really interesting points there, and one is about making life easier and better for your reps or agents or whatever you call them. And if they're happier doing their jobs, they're going to be able to serve customers better, right? So it's not just about, removing calls. It's not all about efficiency. It's being able to sort of create a win-win-win situation between the business, the customer, and your agents, which is really, really cool. And then I think the second thing I was hearing, and you guys are going to hear a lot about generative AI in the next session. And I think how Mike was talking about next steps, how Bryan was talking about next steps, we're moving into a world where this kind of technology can be used to create something like a personal assistant, but for your brand, like a Siri or an Alexa that works on behalf of your brand. So maybe they are making recommendations for clothes for back to school based on purchase history, or maybe they're calling you up and booking in a service because they know that you're gonna need one in a month, and you might as well do it now because there's queues. So I think there's some really exciting stuff in the future. I think I've got you for 5 more minutes, so I'm just going to ask one final question, which is I'd love to know if what advice you would give to somebody who's in a role like yours, who's looking to create a competitive advantage. What advice would you give to them? So maybe Dan, you could start this time.
I would constantly be looking and studying the landscape. You never know what's out there. That's how I found you guys. And then once you find and identify a good partner, learning every way that you can utilize them is critical, because some in our discussions with Poly, we were limiting the asks oftentimes, not realizing, oh, you guys could do so much more. And so really studying those key advantages that Poly can bring to the table will be really critical.
Amazing. And Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I think that the PolyAI team has shown me that they're innovative enough to build pretty much what I can think of. I need to be able to build the APIs on the back end, right? And so investing on the back end, because your virtual assistant is only as good as the APIs that you can provide it. In my case at least, right? And we're not using generative AI because of just where it's at right now. We're investigating it, but I'm learning that the customers are enjoying it. My adoption rate for self-service used to be 2% in the IVR. We are deflecting 40% of my total call volume right now. And it's all self-service, right? So the customers love it. And so I think that's it. Like he said, don't limit Poly AI just because we don't know enough yet. Keep looking at what's possible and stretching it.
Yeah, amazing. And Bryan, how about you?
I think Dan hit it on the head when he said, always be looking. There's always solutions out there. But for me, I realized over this last year that I need to make sure that as an operations manager, I truly understand what my problem is that I'm trying to solve. Many times over the course of this last year, I was trying to get GPT or other AI solutions to solve my problems for me. And I was almost trying to force the fact a bit. And I realized I need to step back a little bit, take my time, truly find the root cause of my issue, and then take Dan's advice, go out and make sure I can find the right solution.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I think you're all saying kind of different things, but they all fit together really nicely, I think. So to Dan's point, it's about really understanding what is going on in the technical landscape, right? And making sure that you are up to date in what you know. And then to Mike's point, it's really about understanding the limitations and what needs to be done within your own company to bring everything up to the same standard as this particular project. And then finally, to Bryan's point, it's about really making sure that you know exactly what you need to do and that you're building a solution that is going to solve that problem rather than just looking at AI for the sake of it, which kind of comes back to Dan's point, which is kind of do look at AI for the sake of it because it will be interesting and you'll learn a lot. But I think contradictory as they sound, I think they all do fit together to give you a really good understanding of how to think about these projects. So thank you so much for joining us today. Next up, we have our final session. We have Devidas, Megan, and Bryan from PolyAI, who are going to show you some of our latest releases, a lot of cool generative AI stuff in here, and something that you can sign up for and try yourself in the coming weeks. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the next session.